Lesotho land, Lesotho, right? The people of the country have these hats that they wear, which is their symbol pretty much. You'd see the same on the flag as well. They also have a blanket. Why? Because the entire country is 1,000+ feet above sea level, so it's really cold. If you want to enjoy winter and maybe you want to make that snow angel, you just go to Lesotho. You don't need to leave the continent.
Experience I don't want to go through.
Yeah. But did you know as well that they are they supply water to South Africa? They call themselves to be the water tower of South Africa. So they export water as a resource, aside from diamonds that they do have as well. Okay. But let's go to the proverb. Yeah. Even a small meal reaches the mouth. Even a small meal reaches the mouth. How would you interpret it? What do you think Lesotho are telling us?
Even a small meal reaches the mouth.
Yeah.
I think the proverb is appropriately African, because for us, food is not a small matter. So appreciating, it's a message that seeks to get the recipient of food to appreciate what comes out of what's available to his mouth. So I think it's more of just saying that be grateful with whatever you get.
There you get.
I don't know how far off I am.
Nope. Your interpretation will always be right because it is yours. But asante sana for interpreting it, because it pretty much speaks about appreciating the little steps, the little things that come with life. Asante sana.
Yeah. Indeed.
Yeah.
So I don't know if to say unfortunately, are thrown back into the situation where we have to discuss abductions and what exactly happens in the process of this happening. And we again can't run away from the promise that was made, or at least the acknowledgement that this was a horrible thing, and whereby the promise was made that, these things will be a thing of the past and that will not happen anymore. But that doesn't seem to be the case, does it, Wafula? That abductions still continue to happen and that people come back with tales of war. War in the sense of the things that happened to them, undisclosed locations, people who said to be, agents of security agents, asking them who funds them, asking them what agenda that they have. But let's look at this a little bit more closely, especially against the backdrop of what we hear coming from the Interior PS yesterday, that these people are not being abducted. What's happening here is that they're hiding out. Maybe they're taking a couple of days off to cool their heels after a demonstration, but they're not being abducted, and that we're not going to run away from that narrative. Taking all of these things into consideration, what do you know about the abductions that have taken place in Kenya over the last, short period of time?
Yeah, I think abductions as a phenomenon, I read the subtitle of our discussions today and read something like Down Memory Lane with regard to abductions. And it's fair that we acknowledge the fact that abductions may have been launched in Africa. The first major abductions took people to America and the Arabic world and that kind of thing. Those were abductions, actually. And they're being done in the same way. So what we are going through proves to us that maybe we have students of those experiences. And now that they have occupied political offices, they're using those offices to execute what they have learned, the negative history that Africa has gone through. But it's a very unfortunate situation that speaks about whether the state is really willing to steer the country by adhering to constitutional provisions, or maybe taking us off and taking us back to history when abductions used to take place. Yeah.
Wafula, when you look at, let's even take the latest incidents that happened in the country, where we have images of individuals being picked up by police.
Yeah.
And we have experienced that once a police officer picked you, I've never seen an incident where a police officer lets you go. They pick you up, the next place you end up is a police station. They'll process you, you're supposed to show up in court, right? But then individuals don't end up in court. Their whereabouts is not known. but they're found one way or the other, having been tortured, having been beaten to a pulp, and that they need medical assistance. That another gentleman shows up, does not speak at all. They are in hospital. But the message that then comes from the Ministry of Interior, those in charge of protecting Kenyans, including the protesters, say, these Kenyans were not abducted. These Kenyans did not disappear. They were in for hiding. Is there any sincerity, or does it make sense that I would go into hiding from whoever knows what, and I hurt myself while in hiding? Does that statement make sense?
It absolutely doesn't. Fortunately, I think these are government that will go down in history as that has worked based on falsehoods, spreading lies. And even if we say there was one person or two who has abducted himself, against what background does that fellow do it, if at all? It's that fellow will be doing it because everybody knows that this is a government of abductors, and therefore if I do this, the government will be blamed. So I know that the government has embraced abductions as a tool in managing our society and seeing to it that whatever things they would like to do in government is enforced, and those who are opposed to it are suppressed through abductions. So there's no truth in the fact that people are abducting themselves. I attended the funeral of a young man called Denzel Omondi in Karachonyo. And when I arrived, he was abducted. I'm told he was found in Thika. Dam somewhere. Yeah. So when I arrived, they had covered the coffin and nobody was allowed to see it. But I went and pleaded the family, not the family, but the person who was in charge of the space. Say, I've come all the way from Bungoma to mourn this boy. Yeah. Surely I can't go back without having seen him. And they showed me the body. I have never seen anything so bad. It looked like he had been hit by about 5 axes, an axe, katakuni. It's like there are 5 major scars on the skull, and that's why the owners of the boy had covered the coffin and refused people to really come and see. I actually went to Babu Wino and asked him, please. I remembered what happened to JM Kariuki, because JM Kariuki's body and pictures are available. I told Babu Wino, please, can you use your reputation here because you're respected? Go and take that picture so that we can keep it for people to see what happened to this boy and what abductions really mean. I think he didn't agree with me, so he didn't take the picture, but I felt bad. I just wish that one day we could have pictures like that for us to look at and remember. But abductions are taking place in Kenya, and the injuries being inflicted on our people range from physical injuries that are clearly visible to invisible injuries. Perhaps that's why this boy is in hospital, is not able to speak. It's because of injuries. Because, torturers keep changing tactics from one tactic to another. Just like, they can disperse and block the roads. So also at the level of torture, they are able to inflict injury to people of various types, including that of Denzel Omondi.
Why do you think it's a tool that's being used? If you take somebody and, hold them up in a place for some time, what would one hope to achieve by keeping this person away and doing whatever it is that's done to them?
I think it speaks to the spirit of the person, of the perpetrator. First, this is a person who doesn't want to be guided by the law. Then this also is a person who knows that he is or she is doing wrong. And so the whole idea of applying abductions is to get the targeted victims into spaces where there's no monitoring. Yeah. There's no monitoring, there are no reports, there are no official records, there's no OB, so there's no follow-up. And you realize that some of these people who are abducted are even killed. So they need abductions as a way of covering up on their crimes, but it also speaks about them as people who do not have any proper intentions of actually enforcing the law.
The government of the day was very clear that there was going to be a reduction, if not complete stop, to this kind of thing. That enforced disappearances and extrajudicial killing was a thing of the past. So when you say something like that, there is the acknowledgement, at the very least, that this is an abhorrent thing, that it is a terrible thing that you cannot actually engage in, and that the damage that it does to individuals and families and to the society at large is something that you will not be able to come back from. So there is the acknowledgement of that. Why then? So everybody knows it's a bad thing. That's my point.
Yeah.
Why then would we see that there is a resurgence of that? Maybe to some extent even worse than what was before. Because in some cases, these people come back and they don't speak. There are people who are active on social today who talk of other things except what happened to them when they were away. Why then do we see a resurgence in the face of a promise that was made to reduce this, from your opinion?
You see, every action has a cause. And the reason why abductions began was because the state was determined to push down the throats of Kenyans. Bad policies or, projects and policies that have not gone through public participation and approval, policies that are also inconsistent with the law. So now the only way you can allow people to enjoy the freedom of speech is when you're able to really act on what they say. So the declaration by the government that abductions will not take place cannot be sustained if the government is still determined to fight against the people. It's been unable to deal with issues of joblessness, poverty. It has even raised the cost of fuel and raised the cost of living. Now, against that background, you need an oppressive hand to manage a population that's supposed to protest and even demand for your exit. So, proclamations that they will stop abductions is all not possible if they cannot enforce the rights that people have been demanding for. And you recall that there were demos around fuel, not demos really, but protests around fuel rise, which was really very, very high. So the government is just living up to what we should expect, because to free people, you must allow them, you must give them an environment that makes them enjoy the freedoms that they deserve. Yeah. In the absence of that, I think they will still need to oppress people to survive. And one of those avenues is through abductions, as we say them. Now, coming to how people go to get arrested, abducted, and they come out and keep quiet. Those are experiences I've gone through. Anytime I've been arrested about 24 times. I was counting the other day. It's around that. And most of those interrogations, you will not go to the police department, be abducted or arrested, and stay for long without coming out with some agreement. I'm just telling you as facts. You come out and either you agree to be the informer or you agree that you will not participate in anything that is political.
Failure to which?
I'll give my example. Since you said I also talk about experiences.
Yes.
There's a time when I left Uganda and came back from exile. I came and we launched the National Union of Students of Kenya. National Union of Students of Kenya, 1992. And that time I'd come back, we were trained guerrillas, were scattered in the country. So they arrested me and took me to Gigiri. But you see, I had a problem because I was keeping the documents and pictures of underground leaders, Dr. Adawiti, Professor Mshere Mungu you met in Uganda, and then the Durungwen and many other, Lumumba Denda, those kind of people, many. So now I needed to come up with a strategy that gives me a chance to go and get those documents somewhere else. And unfortunately, I'd gone with them, with my wife, when I was hiding them. So I was feared they could go and beat her, and then she reveals where the documents are. And if those documents are released, then all of us will be rounded up, and they will have evidence to charge us. So I thought the best strategy is for me to do an agreement with them and be set free. So I signed an agreement that they said I'll not go back to any learning institution.
Okay.
No stepping in the university, no stepping in a primary school, no stepping in a nursery school. Just keep off from all learning institutions.
These were police?
These were police,
Okay.
yes. Because I was the chairman of the National Union of Students of Kenya. So now, according to that agreement, I was supposed to come out and I would not engage in student politics. But I signed because I needed to go back, take those documents and give them to somebody else. So they released me. And the first thing I did is go to Kisumu, get those documents, and I gave them to Odorungwen to keep them so that now it can be okay. I'm saying that anybody who goes to custody is always made to either sign an agreement that you will not do ABC, you will keep quiet, and failure to do that, they will come for you. So many people get in those agreements and end up keeping quiet.
How do you reach the agreement, Wafula?
Yeah.
How?
Because I can't imagine that you're sitting across a table and somebody says to you, Wafula, do you agree? And you say, yes, I agree, we sign, let's go.
Yes.
It would seem as though there needed to be other forms of persuasion that were not palatable to the physical.
From my experience, it is basically just a situation where you are you've been tortured and you want to use an open. I've given talks on how to survive torture, so I know how to manage torture and interrogation a bit. So the issue here is playing on them and listening to them, manipulating them, those kind of things. But the end result has to be such that it achieves what you want. Well, when they released me, the first place I slept was Kikuyu campus, which is breaking the law.
After you promised that
Yes,
you would
after
not.
I promised. And then I also addressed the media and said the National Union of Students of Kenya will continue the way it is. But I had done a more important thing, which was rescuing the documents of my underground movement. But the point I'm trying to drive at is that those who come out and keep quiet most likely have been subjected to the same experience. Yeah, and intimidation, of course.
I mean, we find ourselves as well, despite the promise that was given during the campaign period that abductions and disappearance of Kenyans would end, because we're also just coming off the Yala River bodies that we saw as a country. And that was, one would say that was a political tool that was used at the time. And the current president used that during the campaign period. But you get into his government, there are abductions that we see. They get into broad-based government, there is an agreement, and that forms the 10-point agenda as well. Again, a second time, another promise that has been given, that would stop. But you get to 2025, again, we see the same being repeated. 2026, again, it's being repeated, despite existence of the 10-point agenda under the broad-based arrangement, which then leaves us asking the most difficult and chilling question then, that abduction is a way of dealing with dissent, that if you do not sing praise and hallelujah to government, then abduction is a tool that will be used to silence you or for them to achieve, to implement that which they want then.
I have talked to a few people who have been in government, and I think you also know that when our government takes, when our government, gets elected and takes office, unfortunately, what they always have to do is remove those who are there and put their own. Now, what does that mean? It means elevating people from poor positions to real serious positions. The first police commissioner, IG, the first IG was called Coleman.
Yes.
Nobody can say there's anything in that fellow. He's an incompetent person. But you see, he's being elevated to that position because he's supposed to be a member of the new team, isn't it? And this happens in all levels. So now, some of those acts of incompetence arise from the fact that those who take power do not respect merit. They come by lifting their own tribespeople or their own colleagues and friends to office. Now, before they land that particular office, they've already committed so many crimes. That's one of the issues that sometimes may cause that particular problem. Now, the other issue is enthusiasm. You see, the experience we've had as Kenyan people is that when a government takes office, the first thing it does is do rewards those who have spent their money in campaigns, pay themselves and that kind of thing. So you create a people who are disoriented by the many benefits that are accruing to them because of being part of the government. So some crimes are crimes of enthusiasm. You come there and you're excited and you're making money and your brain goes blunt. In the process, anything you engage with, if somebody's fighting, Ruto say, what's wrong with this guy? What does he want? The desire to use shortcuts to suppress opposition starts emerging just because of the madness that comes with the desire, the gains that are accruing from being in government. So that, I think, may explain some of the causes. But another cause also is that you are put in office, you have made pledges, you promised to do several things, and you lack the competence. Maybe you overpromised. So now, how do you hold dialogue with a person who asks questions and you have no answer? So you find repression finding its way because you must understand that fellow is not he's dealing with a situation that you should understand that he cannot be able to deliver on. So political suppression emerges as a means by which you can suppress dissent that emerges directly from failing to execute promises that you offered.
What do you think, before we take a break, to go into, what do you think, because right now it would appear as though if you show up on the street during a commemoration, if you're on social media making your voice known in one way or another, if you do a news report, if you share information that you are directly concerned about, then you're a candidate for possible abduction, whereby a conversation will be had with you, and where, according to you, at the end of the day, you're going to come out with an agreement in one way or another. What do you think people ought to do, or what do you think people ought to be prepared for? Because, I mean, it's sad that we have to say it like that, but it looks as though it's the modus operandi right now that, in fact, we often make jokes about it every now and then. We say, well, utakujiwa, that kind of thing, So what should people be prepared for? Because we've already gone through it. The promise made is not likely to be upheld in terms of the reduction. But what do you need to remember if you ever find yourself in a position of threat?
You see, I don't know whether I have the experience that can help me answer that. But what we learn from history is that these acts of repression have led to people changing forms of struggle. When political assassinations and arrests and, torture happened during the Moi era, what happened is there was a season of almost some lull when politics went underground. People started organizing through things like Makenya, that kind of thing. I think if overt methods of struggle are blocked by the state, people have no choice but to try and find out what kind of language does the state speak so that we can speak to it. And in the 70s and 80s in Africa, fellows even went and picked up guns to prepare to engage the system. You see, I'm saying that suppression of democratic means by which people can deal with their government normally leads to, people using underground methods. All I know is that struggle never stops, because if you look back, we have had a very interesting experience where instead of people fighting the government, they go and fight the allies. They go and they destroy the buildings because the state has become so difficult. So what do? We turn on the supporters of the state. So I'm saying that the struggle will continue, but targeting the government, but it will get more sophisticated, like it was in our times when it had to go underground and fellows went to exile and got military trainings. And in the Kenyan experience, of course, targeting businesses of those who are supporting the government so that the government can somehow feel the pain. And who knows, they may evolve and reach a point and say, you speak violence, you also speak violence. Yeah, anything is possible.
All right, well, we're going to look at those who came out of what would be an abduction over the last couple of days. We'll have that conversation and we'll tie this in to truth of the matter situations where individuals who said they were abducted were actually not. Then how do we deal with that? Wafula Buke joins us in the studio this morning. We're looking at abductions and we're looking at the threats of them and we're looking at how to handle them and we're looking at what the hope will be that they don't actually remain a thing. We'll be back after this. Let's go with traffic and we'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The world's greatest football tournament is here.
Vamos, the greatest show on turf, the biggest ever seen on planet Earth.
And wherever the game takes you, KTN, Radio Maisha and Berur FM have you covered. Missed the match? Catch every goal, every moment, and every talking point on KTN.
We are going to focus on two groups.
Which two teams will go to the next round?
The midfield that Mbappe is actually carrying to this particular World Cup is out of this world.
For every match, every attack, every save and every goal, tune in to Radio Maisha and Berur FM for live commentary that puts you right inside the stadium. Watch the highlights, hear the passion.
France itakuwa final na itachukua kikombe.
World Cup mpango mzima this time round tunaichukua Afrika.
KTN
World Cup 26.
Africa!
Leave the World Cup.
Three of Toulouse. Got a handy enough win here.
Big man in the middle. Fernando Mignana trying to stay relaxed.
From 11th June to 19th July, everything can wait. The FIFA World Cup 2026. Get DSTV access for as little as 1,450 Kenya shillings today.
Is it early involvement of children within the business so that they have an understanding from an early age? How is it handled?
Yeah, it's funny. I remember again as a kid when we were living in a big extended family. My dad had his siblings, my grandfather, and the conversation on the dinner table. It was always business. Having spent 5 years with Orange here, this was about 10 years ago. That was the end of my corporate career. That's when I got into the world of startups. Ooh. So IX is my fourth startup that I'm doing here. And actually in my career, I can't remember when I actually interviewed for a job. Karibuni Kenya, ni nchi ya jua, jambo jambo bwana, jambo jambo rafiki.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
About some of the things that perhaps happened and what you would still be looking for towards Kenya. And he said to me very clearly, unequivocally, and he said, Ndu, I will never speak another word in the public for as long as I'm alive in Kenya. And I asked him, what happened to you? And he said to me, these are things also that I will never be able to speak about again. And I see him in his business. He continues. He's still doing he's still in Kenya, still working. But of the happenings in that 10-day period, he will never speak of them. And I tried to understand, and it haunted me what he said. And I said, what could have possibly happened to him to reach the resolve whereby he would choose that he would never speak? Is it the agreement that you speak of, Wafula? Or is it the fear of what could possibly happen to him if he ever engaged again?
See, when I was jailed many years ago, I had a very shocking experience in prison. That you go to prison and you come out and you don't believe that there's such a world anywhere. And I came to understand why we do not know about prison life. We do not know about prison life because it's so traumatizing that when you get out, you don't want to talk about it. You see, the experiences you go through, the humiliation you go through, makes you just shut up, say, let me close this and start another chapter. I think it may be the same thing that happened this young man. He goes there, gets traumatized, and decides that the best thing to do is to shut that window so that doesn't really have memories that he can relive. So that I think is one of the explanations. When people have gone through a lot of trauma, and it's possible that this particular person was not as convicted, as grounded in what he was doing in terms of understanding as others have been. So you go join the struggle or a demonstration as an adventurer, then you find yourself in a world you never thought about. And if you look at most of the political people who go to prison and come out, those who remain firm are those who go to prison consciously knowing that they are doing this and it's right. But if a fellow just finds himself or herself in a torturous environment and experience like these particular ones were going through, when you come out, the first thing is, please let me start from where I was and continue the way I did. That's one. Obviously, you cannot go to custody and come out and be told, continue doing what you're doing. You will be subjected to torture and be told, well, if you want torture, we are all yours. Just proceed, we shall come for you. Is that clear? Of course, an innocent Kenyan soul that took part in a demo must say yes. So I think this is the case with a younger comrade who decided to keep quiet. He's not alone.
And look at the comrade who is in bed. I'm not sure that he's been released from hospital just yet. Luchima, this is not the first rodeo. He's been arrested before. He has been on the streets 2024. In fact, Dennis tells us this morning that he, at some point, was arrested and even released by police to carry on his business.
2024.
In 2024. But he lies in this hospital bed and he's not said a word. He's not said anything to anybody about what could have possibly happened. So in this case, it's such a hard question, but in this case, do the forces win when he's silent? Whatever it is that they wanted to achieve has been achieved in the silence of those who've been released. Same thing with the Kitengela 4. After Masengeli refused to go and attend to court orders 6 times, on the 7th he presented himself to court, Masengeli being the deputy IG of police. And on the same day, the Kitengela 4 were released. They've never said, they said a little bit about what happened to them.
They required.
Yeah, they talked about the torture. Bob Njagi talks about the torture that they went through. But then still, I believe Bob Njagi, as we speak, is in detention, waiting for a court date about what he's said to have done over the last couple of days. But what would have happened to silence somebody for days in this manner?
Yeah, we are being led by very educated people. Very educated, one as a PhD, another as a professor, and the lawyer, the Interior Security Fellow is Murkomen, I think I hear he has a master's. I'm saying that these are fellows who have managed to do research and understand how to get things done. You know, knowledge is only the value of knowledge is determined by what it's applied on. And if you go to places like Israel, those learned people came up with ways of silencing their opponents. You go to prison and you're given an injection and you die 6 months later after being released. I'm saying that our learned people in power, I think that sometime in future, history may tell us exactly how they are managing to silence people who have been active. But obviously, these people are not keeping quiet. They are being made not to speak. What I don't know is what the state hopes to achieve, because if they have anything they ought to learn is that they beat up young people, kill them. What's the end result? It's now a wound they have to keep wiping every year. Because they kill people, we have to keep asking. You kill people every 20 something. So that is something that ought to tell them that please, violating people's rights doesn't necessarily give you, a good appearance. Instead, you institutionalize and, make yourself a target of condemnation over the years. Yeah. So there we are.
I mean, if you look at the struggle that Kenyans find themselves in today, and even why they get out on the streets, it's because the cardinal document, the constitution that gives them the power to do so, is their document. This is not a document that belongs to any other group. It belongs to Kenyans. It is Kenyans who give the constitution the power it has today. That picketing, demonstrating, or even showing dissent is protected by the constitution that ostensibly the individuals talking about swore to protect and uphold. That the end goal cannot be seen when you abduct, because you will not be able to silence dissent. You might get rid of individuals, but dissenters will always be there. You will have to lick the wound. You will have to deal with the consequences. So would I be right to say that the abductions that you see today, the disrespect to the rule of law, will not achieve anything if the concerns Kenyans are raising are not handled? That everything is an exercise in futility?
You see, yesterday I was passing by Parliament and I met a fairly adult street boy. And we had a chat. Then I asked him, now tell me. Of course, talked about these poverty issues and that kind of thing. I asked him, now tell me, what do you have? How much money do you have? Told him, I have nothing. Then he removed a Bible. That Bible had an ID and a SIM card. No, so I told him, now, why do you keep all these things? He says, no. Me, I'm always praying that I will be a small Bible, that I'll make it. And I think this year I'll make it. And this SIM card, if I'm given somebody has no money, he can give me, and I save it for my insurance. That when I'm down, at least I can take this SIM card to M-Pesa and be given. I'm talking about a fellow who has weapons of survival. An ID, so that he's not arrested, a Bible for his moral direction, and an
ID.
A SIM card for communication.
For communication, and also it's keeping money, it's not communication, maybe also communication. Now let's go to the guy who is Lichuma, who is in custody.
Yeah.
That guy demonstrated throughout with
the Constitution.
Let's move the Constitution. His weapon, his defense was that document. Now, here we are now. This guy has carried this book, believing that if he meets a law enforcement officer, he'll open and say, please, don't touch me. This is what the Constitution says. Now, the government is saying that you should not carry that book. This book can't help you. Now, tell me, which other book is he going to look for? He has to look for another weapon that can help him. And in my opinion, I see him looking for a book like The Art of War. Because he has to defend himself. And who knows, others may not go for the book, but go for weapons of self-defense. So, the government should feel lucky that the street boy is carrying the Bible. That's his defense. He's not carrying a screwdriver to push it in somebody. The government should be happy that Lichuma, who is in prison, who is in hospital right now, was carrying an official document called the Constitution. Yes. If they make that Constitution not useful, we won't fail to get something else to carry. In our days, I went to Uganda and carried an AK-47 because the Constitution could not be carried, it would not defend me. So I'm warning the government that there's no shortage of things to carry. Let them just let the Constitution be the only document be carried by Lichuma. If Lichuma can't carry the Constitution, he'll find out something which can help him. Yeah.
Do you think this will continue? That the forced disappearances, what we know as abductions today, do you think they will continue?
I think there's a limit. There's a limit there's a limit on how long this can go on. One, the intensity of oppression will definitely create a response. And the limit will not be brought by the government, it will be brought by the victims themselves. If the victims come together and say, what do we do? Then that will define when that particular exercise will stop. Of course, it's 2026, we're headed 2027. One of those periods when I think it may stop is when people come together and say, please, this government has to take a break and we have another one. That other one may be good. In Africa, you can't be sure. They'll take power and you see them fast. They may just give us another replay of the past. But that's a period when it can also stop. But what we learned from the GNC is the power of the people. That you just need a few thousands of people who are determined, and the government will come tumbling. And I think that is another lesson we learned, that some of these acts of oppression can be brought to an end. Of course, Ruto has made history. I don't know that I'm giving credit, because he has given us a prize of torture. Says if you get killed now, you can earn how much?
3 million.
You can earn 3 million. And if they break your leg, you can get something. We have been elevated now to almost the game park situation, where if an elephant does this, you get paid some amount. Now, for me, we have a challenge. And the challenge is that for these things to stop, it may not just take the character of the police. I've heard people say we need to take the police for training. But who directs the police? I think we need to take the political leadership, the government officials, for training. If training can bring any change. I don't think it does, because already we have very educated people in office. And if they cannot stop it, then we have a problem. So I do not expect any change during the regime of William Ruto. And I just hope that a moment in history will show up, maybe before the elections or after the elections, when Kenyans can say, please, you must stop or else.
Yeah. Wafula, the government, you said, has given us a prize for whenever they abduct you.
Shooting the leg.
You're shot in the leg, you die, you're maimed. There is a prize to that.
Yeah.
But that, if we just pause and think about what that means, is the government has self-indicted itself by agreeing and saying, we take responsibility for killing, for shooting, for maiming and injuring you. That's essentially what the government is saying. That police officers, or rather orders would be given today that more Kenyans will be killed, but because we can pay, we will pay. We will kill and we will pay. We will injure and we will still pay. To what end, though? What must we do, Wafula, today for us to get to a point where abductions, extrajudicial killings, stop being the modus operandi in Kenya? Because we can't continue like this in perpetuity. Something must give. What must the political class learn? What must the police learn? And what must Wananchi learn? Because it is not just a conversation that will be left for a particular group. It's a conversation that everybody must get into. We say police officers need curriculum. No. They've been in the curriculum for 9 months before they graduate. Perhaps something needs to be done, but what exactly? What's the solution to where we find ourselves today?
You see, one. I think there are two things I would say. I have no specific answer. I'm not an expert, but we can look at history of Africa and histories of political repression, and there are very many things that come out of history. One of those ways is crafting a project that can crash the state apparatus. I don't know what I mean, but I'm just saying that the state as it exists, we don't want to start from that finds problems. So how do we get it reworked? And when we say about it being reworked, it's been done in the world. You look at Tanzania. Tanzania arrest is very diplomatic, you know. Jaramogi was arrested from his house in pajamas, abducted. That's the word. He was abducted in his pajamas. And an old man of that age moved and kept in the cell. You see, that's abduction. Now, in Tanzania, we ask ourselves, how come they say, ndugu, naomba nikukamate na kama hujavaa nguo, ama unamaliza chai, maliza kikombe twende. You see, how did they arrive at that? For me, we are looking at the ideology of those in power. Are they anti-people or pro-people? The people we have in power today are engaged in the business of making money. Even these development projects you are having, they're available means for making money. I remember being told about someone that I want to mention, say that when we take power, we are going to make sure we build even airports where they are not required, so that we can make money and be richer than Uhuru Kenyatta in 3 years.
Yes.
You get? Their objective is to make money. Is there anything we can do to this gang to make them change and have a Nyerere heart? I don't think so. So, solution number one is for us to find an answer to how do we overhaul the state apparatus as it is. That's state number one. And that can come out through an electoral process. Then we also look at how other countries are managing some of their problems. Allow me to talk about Jerry Rawlings. Jerry Rawlings emerged from the army and said, you guys, those of you are obstacles, please go to heaven.
Literally.
Mambo ni Matatu. So he also came and gathered all of them and dispatched them to heaven. Actually, Ghana changed.
It did.
Yeah. So we like it or not, that is also what history tells us. Then the other challenge we must accept is this, and I don't know how we can deal with it. How can people, maybe it's a constitutional issue, but people emerge and become heads of state and home governments. Then they use the people, the votes, to ascend those particular positions. Then after arriving there, they forget about the people and rely on the instruments of coercion. Blind. Let me tell you, it is correct to call the policemen dogs. They're not human beings. You know? Even your own child has been, but you're still towing the line. What do we do to make sure that we re-engineer the police force so that they can become human beings? Human beings, just being human beings. Because there must be a point at which they can say, this one,
it's too much.
We can't do. Yeah. How do we get there? That's a challenge that maybe should be assigned to Parliament.
For sure. If there was a willingness to do it, we would probably see the conversation. But why we talk about these things is to ensure that conversation remains front and center. And we've said this about very many conversations. That's why we continue to have them. That some of the things that you've said this morning, coming out into the light is the first step. And so we want to thank you for being here with us this morning to look into this. It's our hope that it doesn't get worse, but you've told us it doesn't look like it's going to stop until you change the direction in which you're going. Wafula Buke is an activist. He's joined us to talk about the disturbing issue of abductions in the country at the moment. And from what he's saying, it doesn't look like it's going to get better. Not now. So there's something that you must do. Wafula, thank you for joining us this morning. Our conversations continue. It's 9 a.m.
The latest news from around the world. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.